What's up, horror fam? JT from the Horror Chronicles. We're doing something a little different tonight. I was fortunate enough to get a couple in here that I'm sure you guys are going to know. They're two of the heaviest hitters in the podcast game. Great people. They do a lot of cool stuff, a lot of good work in the community, and they tell some really creepy stories. So without further ado, I'm going to get them in here, and we're just going to talk about some stuff. So welcome on board, Jerry and Tracy Paulley.
Thank you.
What's going on, guys?
Not much. Excited to be on the show.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. Unfortunately, Ryan couldn't make it, so he's got a stand-in tonight.
Oh, I thought he was looking kind of bad.
Well, Ryan kind of looks like that sometimes. So what's going on, guys? How are things?
Things are great. Everything's going good in life. We moved to Florida about 3 months ago from Kentucky, so we have warm weather. Really warm weather today.
It's about to be in the 90s this weekend, so yay.
Yeah. Nice,
Yep.
nice.
I've got a skeleton behind me, too, in case you didn't notice.
You do. I see that. Yours is waving at me. You got some really creepy stuff going on back there, Jerry.
Oh, yeah, the whole room. This is our studio. Usually Tracy's in here with me, but I figured we might get some echo and stuff if we tried to do this in the same room. So
do it together, yeah.
I kicked her to the dining room.
Nice.
I thought you was going to say, yeah, Tracy's in here when you just got in talking about the creepy things in your room. It was like, oh.
Now, don't put up with that.
Nah.
But, so how is Florida? It's still weird for me because I keep thinking about you guys still being in Kentucky. And
Well, it's still weird for us, but believe it or not, because we still listen to like our favorite sports show that's on from 10 to 12 every morning. So we still listen to that, and they talk about doing live remotes and stuff like that. And we were like, hey, maybe Friday we can, and then we catch ourselves. We're not there to be able to go do this, because we used to do that all the time. And all the Kentucky Derby was just this past Saturday, and it's weird not being there. But we try to keep so many local ties. Sometimes we forget that we're not there.
Right. So, what was the big decision for Florida, though?
Honestly, about 10 years ago, we lived in the Virgin Islands for 5 months, and that was awesome. But, it's 2,000 miles away. You got to hop on a plane. There's no driving. I don't know if you knew this or not. It's hard to drive across the water.
Right.
But we and the modern conveniences there aren't what you would think they are. Yeah, you go to a resort and they've got everything and anything, but most of the gas stations are more like the little corner individually owned gas stations that are really hot and smelly when you walk in. There are no, big time groceries like Publix or, Walmart. There's 2 Kmart's on the island, and that's all they have for department stores. It's just, it just was not what we were used to. Most of the restaurants weren't there. Cost of living was outrageous. It was $7 for a gallon of milk, and this was 10 years ago.
Woo.
Once we got back to the States, we just decided, what, we liked all the weather stuff there and the tropicalness, but we just didn't like the fact that it was so far away. So now we still get the weather. We've got a lot more conveniences, modern conveniences, and we're only 12 hours from home when we need to go back, all by car. So
right. Yeah, because, of course, the kids and stuff, they're still in Kentucky, or have they moved away? Or
some of them are Kentucky, some of them are in Ohio.
Okay. Got them up there with Nick and Rob, huh?
They're not that close to Nick and Rob. That's but I made them stay at least a county away.
No, yeah, I don't blame you. Them boys are rough. But yeah, so you guys are in the Daytona area, right?
We are.
Okay. See, my dad lived in a very small town called Palatka, which wasn't too far. He was about 50 miles from Daytona.
Oh,
And
wow.
I spent the summer with him a few times. Me and my dad were never close, but I spent the summer with him a couple years, and pretty cool area down there. I personally would not want to live there, but hey, to each his own.
Right.
Yeah. After our first hurricane, when it comes and when it reaches about 100 degrees, we'll probably be regretting as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How close are you to the ocean?
15 minutes.
In about 15 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But that's really nice.
Oh yeah, definitely. Jerry, did you turn into a beach bum or?
Funny story is we went to the beach a couple of days ago, and that's the first time in 3 months of being here that we actually went to the beach for the purpose of like laying out and enjoying the beach.
Nice.
We've been there a few times for some restaurants that are on the beach, and we've walked around a little bit. But in all honesty, when we first moved down here, it was in the 50s most of the time.
Oh yeah.
And it was very, very chilly
and very windy on the beach. So there was no. Not for us. There was no going out laying on the beach. That's what we were trying to get away from.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny. You guys were probably in jeans and jackets, and everybody else that lives down there is out running in shorts and t-shirts.
He was in a daggone hoodie.
Today I was in a hoodie.
I get it.
Yeah, it was 85 today, and he had a hoodie on.
Woo.
But I was inside, and the studio gets very cold. It's like it's a small room, so it gets colder than the rest of the house when I've got the door shut. So I wear a hoodie and I run a heater most of the time in here because it doesn't matter what it is outside. It's cold in here.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. You talk about that. My wife and I, we took a trip up to, she surprised me with a trip on our anniversary one year, took me to Salem, Massachusetts. And,
nice.
Absolutely had a blast. But one of the days that we were up there for about a week, and one of the days we decided we were going to drive up the coastal highway into Maine and, just sightseeing. Had no idea where we were going. We just jumped in the car and went. And we get up there and we decide that there was some lighthouses and stuff. So we stopped and got out of the car, and, my wife's in a sweater and blue jeans, and I've got a jacket on and blue jeans. And we walk out on the beach, and there's people out there running up and down the beach in shorts and no shirts on. And they're looking at us like we're crazy. And, it's, our anniversary is in October. So to us, it was freezing, but to them, it was, I would imagine it was probably in the 50s, like you guys were just saying. It's just funny when you get used to living somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so tell all my people like they wouldn't know you guys, because we talk about you guys quite a bit.
Thank you.
And it's always behind your back too. No. No, you know what? I have a lot of respect for you too, because you have such a great show and a great community, and you're great people. I know whenever Ryan and I were starting out on this show, it was funny. I tell people this story all the time. I'm like, yeah, I sent a message to Jerry Paulley just to, see if we could have a little conversation. And, I'll be damned if you didn't send me a message back like 10 minutes later and you're like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you, and you didn't know me from Adam. You'd never talked to me in your life. And you were like, here, I'll call you. And you called me on the phone, and I was expecting to be on the phone with you for 5 minutes, because I'm like, this guy's a celebrity, and it was like 45 minutes to an hour later. I'm trying to get Jerry off the phone because I'm at work. But we just had a great conversation. And I mean, you really steered us in the right direction and kind of, showed me what I needed to do. And I will forever be grateful for that.
Well, I appreciate it. And I do know you from Adam. Adam's on Graveyard Tales. Your voices are distinctly different.
Gotcha.
No, I appreciate it. I feel like we were blessed in being on a couple of bigger shows when we got started.
Right.
And, we were like every other podcast. We had about 5 months or 6 months of doing, everything we possibly could to get listeners and seeing it just creep up little by little. And then we were lucky to be on Real Ghost Stories Online. Tony Bruschi had us on. And we went from getting about 200 downloads a week to 8,000 downloads just from being on his show. And we were able to keep, a chunk of that. You don't keep them all, obviously. But, I don't think we ever dropped under 4,000 downloads a week after that. And,
that's awesome.
That's like I said. And then we followed that up with being on History Goes Bump and on Jim Harold's Campfire. And between those three, I mean, we couldn't help but to have success. Those are three major shows to be on.
Absolutely.
And I've just always vowed that I was going to do the same thing if we had a chance to help out up and comers. I was going to return the favor. So that's why you get the phone call like that.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, and I was shocked. I really was, because I was like, this. I don't know why he'd want to talk to me, but that was awesome.
You're silly.
Awesome. I know. I'm a goofball.
But why, Gerald?
I got to tell you, I was starstruck on the phone. I was like, "Holy crap!" Because I had been listening. I had been listening to you for a long time, and to hear your voice coming over my cell phone was like, "Holy crap!"
Oh my gosh, you're so sweet.
Yeah, I'll never get the starstruck. I guess I kind of get the starstruck thing because when you listen to somebody or you watch somebody for a while and you don't, necessarily think you're going to talk to them in person or meet them in person. But at the same time, we've never felt like that we were anything more than just two people that have a podcast coming out of our bedroom for the most part.
And that's what everybody loves about you guys. You guys have got this massively successful show, but you're so down to earth, and you're just great people. But
thank you.
Anyway, I'll quit cheesing on you here.
Yeah, I'm starting to chafe a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
I don't think we've even mentioned the show yet, have we?
We have not. But my people should know who you are. But if they don't, why don't you talk about your show?
Tracy?
Hello? Well,
Tracy's like, "Oh, we do a show? Wait a minute."
Yeah.
But she had no clue she had no clue I was going to throw it to her. That's why I usually handle that part. And I just thought it would be funny to throw it at her.
Yeah, it worked too, right? So we've been doing this for about 8 years. And
what's the name of the show?
Hillbilly Horror Stories. Hillbilly Horror Stories. Okay. And then he was first doing it with Ricky, and then Ricky kind of had to get out of it, and then he just said, "Hey, I want you to do it." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know anything about what you're doing." So I basically just kind of sat down and followed his lead, and that's about
8 years later, we're in the exact same spot.
Exact same spot. Yeah, so go ahead with the rest, babe.
But you guys make it work, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually been the magic, I think, if we was to call it that. Because when Ricky and I were doing the show, it was basically two guys. We would tell a story, but Ricky'd do part of it, I would do part of it, and it was a lot more. I think Diane from History Goes Bump said it was like two guys talking in a bar. And when Tracy came on board, I had written the whole episode that week. And we were going to try something new. When Ricky couldn't make it, I told her, "You'll have to fill in." She said, "I don't know anything about the story." And I said, "There's no need to. I'll just get your genuine reactions." And that worked so well, we just kept it that way. So even now, 8 years later, she never knows what the story is going to be or any details until we record it.
That's cool. So she has no idea what you're going to talk about.
Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Tracy, did you know you were going to be on another show tonight?
I did know that.
No.
I knew that, right? Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, we did. I know it. And I feel very honored that you asked us to be on here, and I think it's great.
Absolutely.
And Of course, we gotta support our fellow podcasters and just be there for each other. And that's what I kind of like. Everybody's there for each other, so you know it makes things a lot easier in the long run.
Yeah, it has been an interesting ride for us
Mm-hmm.
because we've talked to a few people and we've had a few people on our show and stuff, and it's weird. It's a community. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to outdo you. You're not trying to outdo me. We're all trying
Mm-hmm.
to push each other and make a go of this thing. Ryan and I
Mm-hmm.
last year went to the Haunted America conference in
Oh, that's
Alton,
Alton.
Illinois. Yeah. And we met some other podcasters there, and it was the same thing. I mean, it was both of us just felt like we were at home. We were with our people, I mean, we could
mm-hmm.
walk into anywhere and talk to anybody. And, I tell people all the time, people come up to me and they want to talk about the weather, or they want to talk about this car or that house or something. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the minute you mention ghost, it turns into a 3-hour conversation, because that's the kind of stuff I love talking about. I've been
Yeah.
fascinated with, this kind of stuff all my life. So when Ryan approached me to do a show, I was like, all right, let's figure out how to do it. And
You
luckily,
you
Nice.
mi- Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jerry.
no, I was just going to say, luckily you pointed me in the right direction on that. So,
Well, you mentioned the Haunted America conference, and Troy Taylor does such a good job with that, and he's such an excellent writer, and
yes.
I absolutely love it. And I had the hardest time getting him on the show, and luckily I had somebody that knew him fairly well that pulled some strings for me. So
Yeah.
that was kind of, you talk about starstruck. That was one of those deals for me to where it was like, oh man,
Yeah.
this is a guy that I've listened to. I can't tell you how much stuff of his that I've used for research for shows that we've
Yeah.
done. He's got like 130 books out, not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
It might be closer to 140.
It's funny. I had to giggle whenever you brought his name up because I promised Ryan that I wouldn't talk about Troy Taylor tonight. It's funny. Troy Taylor, I have been following him since I was younger. I've met him several times. The first time I ever met him, I was probably early 20s, so I've met him a few times. And here's kind of a funny story about Troy Taylor. He always complains about people coming up to him and showing him pictures on their cell phone of orbs because he doesn't believe in orbs. Okay. I'm sure you've heard him tell that story. At that Haunted America conference, we had talked, a little bit here and there, but he got off stage and he was telling that story about the orbs and stuff. And I waited till he got back to his booth and I went running up to him with my cell phone out and I'm like, Troy, here, you got to see this. And he's looking at me like he's going to choke me, and I flip my phone around and the picture that's on my phone is a picture of Troy Taylor and I from like 20 years ago.
Oh,
And
wow.
he was like, oh my God, dude, where'd you get that picture? And he knew exactly where that picture was from. He had done some special event at a library or something. And it was just funny. He was like, oh my God, I had hair. It was just, Troy's a really cool guy. He is extremely busy. I have reached out to him to be on our show before. I have probably read more Troy Taylor books in my life than any other book, and I like the way he writes, and he puts on a really good show. And I had hoped that, we could have gotten you guys up there because, man, it was so much fun. We had such a good time there.
We were going to go a couple of years ago. Well, we were going to go COVID year, and then everything got changed.
Yeah.
But no, I love his stuff. Like I said, he's got everything from the websites he's got where it's good research, and his podcast is good too. I like it.
Yeah. I listened to it. Him and it's Cody Beck, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, him and Cody Beck. Troy is a good guy, and the stuff he writes is really good. He told the best story of one of my favorite hauntings, and that's the story of Resurrection Mary.
Nice.
I've been fascinated by the Vanishing Hitchhiker stories ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah, they're all over the place. So it's everybody, and that's the most famous one, obviously, when you start getting into the Chicago area. But there's vanishing hitchhiker stories everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember hearing them when I was a kid. Different takes on the same story. But we actually did an episode. It was like our second or third episode. It's a horrible episode, but we did an episode and I did the vanishing hitchhiker, and I actually went back and did some research and found out that the vanishing hitchhiker story goes all the way back to biblical times. There's actually a story in the Bible about a vanishing hitchhiker.
Oh, wow.
So are they trying to get in a carriage or a horse or a buggy or what?
I don't really remember. Yeah, it was that kind of thing that one of, I don't remember the names at this point, but one of the kings or something had stopped his carriage by a lake, and there was a person there trying to get a ride back into town, and come to find out he was the spirit of, someone. But like I said, I don't remember the exact story, but I found that in the Bible, and it was interesting. So that made it into our episode. Damn, Jerry, I'd have to go back and listen to my episode to know who that was. You ever do that? You forget something, so you go back and you listen to your own episode?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because this past weekend, we actually did an episode on the Demon of Wizard Clip in West Virginia.
Yes.
And we had done a shorter version of that back in, 2019, I think it was. So 5 years ago, roughly. And we did like a 10-minute version, the Cliff Notes version of that story. And for some reason, I caught wind of some other research on it this weekend. I'm like, man, I don't think we covered any of that, but I don't remember. And I went back and listened to our episode to see what we covered. And I actually used our own episode as part of the research for the longer episode.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I had never heard of that story until your guys' episode this past weekend, and listened to that, and that was very interesting. I mean,
it's actually listed as America's very first poltergeist story. It even predates the Bell Witch story.
Yeah, and what was the date on that? It was like the 1700s.
Yeah, there was some stuff. There was some stuff from the 1776. So we're right around the Revolutionary War. So
okay. Yeah. Cool story. But what are your favorite kind of stories? Tracy, what's your favorite kind of story?
I like the 411 stories. Is that it, babe? The 411?
Yeah, missing 411.
The missing 411s.
Yeah. I really enjoy those because it's just so, it's just so bizarre and interesting. But those are the ones I like.
Yeah, those are the ones that I get a kick out of, too. I've heard several on your show and some other shows. And, I really get a kick out of those, too.
And the reincarnation or whatever, where those little, kids said, well, all this stuff, and they're like, the parents are like, how do you know that? I just think that's just so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, when they can describe stuff to a T, exactly, and they're like 2-3 years old, that's crazy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We did an episode on reincarnations, and there were some fantastic stories out there about that. Little kids that have been through wars and stuff and came back and knew the names of planes that they had flown on and people that they had flown with.
Yeah.
And knowing how people died. Oh, so bizarre.
That's wild.
So bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've ever been reincarnated. I don't know. If I have, I don't remember. That was a long time
I don't
ago.
remember neither.
Well, the funny thing about that is they say that kids that do have those memories, by the time they're 7 or 8, they go away. So you'll never hear, I may say never, but you rarely hear about a reincarnation case where it's like an adult or somebody who's, 14, 15 years old, because by that time their memories are gone.
Right. And we've talked about that in different episodes and stuff about how your brain has this thing called the pineal gland that as you get older, it kind of doesn't work the way that it did when you were a child. And that pineal gland is what kind of unlocks your brain to remember some of those things. So, you always hear stories about how kids are more susceptible to seeing spirits or shadow people or the reincarnation stuff. And there's a lot of thought into, because of that pineal gland. As you get older, you lose that ability to see a lot of that stuff. So,
Yeah. It's wild though. Pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some crazy stories out there. What's the craziest thing you guys have ever talked about?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The craziest thing we've ever talked about. Well, we talked about, I think it was in the 966 Lindley episode where they had the haunting, and there was a cat that sang Jingle Bells and was throwing racial slurs out at the firemen that were actually trying to help. I think that was probably one of the craziest things we've talked about.
What?
Yep. That was one of the Warren cases up in Connecticut, 966 Lindley Avenue, I think is what it was. But yeah, they had a cat that firemen actually heard sing Jingle Bells. So there was a lot of policemen and firemen that heard stuff. So yeah, that's actually one of my favorite episodes. We did that at a lot of our live events.
Yeah.
Really?
How fun.
And do you guys actually have that out there?
Yeah, it's out there. It's been 3 or 4 years now. So it's
okay.
Yeah.
Chances are I probably heard that, but
maybe so. I
don't remember it right now, though. That sounds.
It's a really good story. It's one of those. I'll just give you a synopsis of it from what I remember. It's one of those deals where a classic poltergeist case where you've got a little girl. She's 12, 13 years old. Initially, they think that she might be behind all this stuff as far as pranks, but policemen and firemen were coming in the house on a regular basis and seeing these things. Like they had a refrigerator. This is in the 70s. They had a refrigerator, and you know what a refrigerator in the 1970s weighed?
Yeah, it was probably olive green too.
Yeah, probably.
No doubt.
Or gold.
Or gold.
And it would lift up and actually start spinning while the fire department and the police department were there. They had chairs that would, float away while you had like 2 people in a room. The chair would just fly across the room with nobody anywhere near it. So they were having situations like that all the time. Now you got the singing cat. You got that. The fire department, some of the guys there, they knew the family, and they were Italian, and the cat was giving Italian slurs out to the fire department. So you had that going on. Well, eventually what happened was word spread, and it's like a little neighborhood. So there were so many cars coming to see what was going on that people couldn't get to their houses, and police had to block it off. And eventually the cops came out and said, you know what? We figured out what it was. The little girl, she was just doing all this on her own. There was no poltergeist. Well, that's not really the case. Things went on behind the scenes after that. They said that so it would get in the paper so people would quit coming and clogging up the street. And instead it went on a little bit further. But, like everything else, these poltergeist cases last anywhere from a couple of weeks to, a couple of years, and then they just stop. And that's what happened in that one. But the Warrens were involved in it. As you could imagine, it became a circus.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Whenever they got involved in something, it usually did, But, the poltergeist activity is very, very interesting. And I know you really like the poltergeist stuff because we've talked about that before. And like you just said, sometimes it'll last a couple weeks or a couple years. And what I've noticed in a lot of those cases, it usually there's some sort of young girl involved in those cases. Now sometimes it'll be a boy, but very seldom. Usually it has something to do with, a young teenage girl, or,
yeah, like she ain't got enough problems as it is.
Yeah.
Going through puberty and now.
Yeah. Well, and that may be what causes a lot of this,
Yeah.
is these girls going through puberty, because there's a lot of energy changing right there.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what the quote unquote experts theorize that it is. It's basically a lot of emotions, it's a lot of hormones, it's a lot of everything going on, and then that energy just manifests into things going on in the house. But
Right.
it's almost always a prepubescent girl.
Yeah. Prepubescent. I like that.
Is that a
That's
word?
right. I took some schooling.
Yeah. You learned that in schooling. I learned
Don't
that
be
after I
getting
quit school.
hoity-toity. Oh, sorry.
But yeah, very cool, very cool. So what's on the agenda for you guys coming up? You guys got some live stuff going on?
Not a lot. We scaled back when we moved to Florida. We usually do between 7 and 9 a year, and now we're not as centrally located, so it makes it tougher. So we did set up 2 shows that were in our area. We did one at Casadega, which is spiritualist camp. We did that a couple of weeks ago, and we've got one for our 8th anniversary / birthday, however you want to term it for a show. I don't know how that goes,
Right.
but that's in August in St. Augustine. So that one will be fun. And then we've got a cruise that we're doing with the Brohio boys in September. That'll be our second cruise that we've done. We did one 2 years ago that went from Miami to the Bahamas. This one's going from Galveston, Texas to Mexico, and it's a day longer. So we're looking forward to that. That'll be a blast.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. I actually, it's funny. Whenever you guys announced that, you guys are actually leaving on my birthday.
Oh, nice.
I said, "Hey, honey, can I be on my birthday?" She said,
There you go.
She said no.
No.
But I was all right with it. That's one thing I wanted to ask you about was now that you've moved to Florida, are you starting to hear or search for these strange anomalies going on in Florida and different things? You know?
Yeah. I actually joined a group, a Facebook group called Haunted Florida, and we've been able to get 4 or 5 guests to come on the show that were from that particular group that live down here, and people are always posting about haunted places in Florida, that most of which I have not heard of. You know the big ones, obviously, but I see all these little places that are. There's a place right here in Daytona that's 10 minutes or 15 minutes from our house, and I had never heard of it before, and it's like one of the most haunted places in the state. So, and I can't even remember the name of it now. It's just an old Victorian house that's down by the ocean. So it'd be one that I look forward to checking out. And there's a haunted cemetery in downtown too that we rode past, and it's a pretty cool place. Of course, you got like the May Stringer house that's in Florida. That's one of the big ones. You got all the Key West stuff, but yeah, I'm finding a bunch of smaller places that I didn't know existed that I can't wait to check out.
That's cool. That sounds like a good group to be in, especially for you. You'll get some stories from that.
Yeah, it's worked out. Like I said, we had, I think, 5 of those people show up to Casadega at that live event. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was very nice.
paying dividends already.
Yeah. Now you just need to go down to Miami and check out what was it, Aliens at the Mall or something like that. Did you guys hear that crazy story?
Oh, no, I don't know that one.
Oh yeah, there was a big fight broke out at a mall down there in Miami, and the police were called, and there were stories of creatures running through the mall, like creatures, attacking people in this mall. And they call in the police, and it was like crazy. A SWAT team showed up. They had helicopters and all kinds of stuff. This just happened
Oh my gosh.
last year or whatever. And when all was said and done, the police, of course, just said it was a big fight amongst teenagers, and they went down. And there's some speculation that it could have been something more than that, but
That would be awesome.
Yeah,
I've been known to call teenagers creatures. So
right, absolutely. Luckily, I don't have any of those.
we don't either anymore. So,
Nope.
JT, what's your least favorite cryptid? How about that for a question?
Wow, this is going to sound really funny. The one that I'm tired of hearing of the most is Bigfoot. Honestly,
Do you believe in Bigfoot?
So here's my thoughts on it. I've never seen one. I can't tell you that it doesn't exist, but I can't tell you that it does exist. I have heard too many stories to completely weigh it out. But my concern with that is with all the technology that we have now, why does every picture that we seem to get of this thing blurry? You know? And then, and Ryan and I have talked about this in length. Why haven't we found any bodies? We've found no skeletal remains of these things. And there's a theory that Bigfoot or Sasquatch could be an interdimensional being. And that would explain why we haven't found any remains. Now we've got a couple of friends of ours that do shows. One of them is Jessica Jones. She does a show called The Cryptid Huntress, and she actually works on a team where they go out and investigate these things. And Jessica is fairly interesting. She's actually a remote viewer. She's done some remote viewing. I mean, she's good enough at it. She's done it for the government. And she's very fun to talk to. But she has told us some stories of stuff that, are unexplainable, she's never, really come out and said, I've seen a Bigfoot, but she would tell you that they're real. She's seen enough evidence of it. And now me, I haven't went out and investigated. I don't go out in the woods. I don't, that's not my thing.
Me neither.
I'm a city boy.
Yeah, I ain't going in the woods.
But, and it's funny because now, I grew up in the city, and when I married my wife 18 years ago, we moved to mid-Missouri, and now I'm in the middle of the woods. But I don't go out there. There's no need for me to go out there. But I don't know. Bigfoot is probably the one that is probably, I guess if I had to pick a least favorite, would probably be Bigfoot. The ones that I really like are, like and this is going to sound silly, but like the Chupacabra stories.
That's the one I hate the most.
Really? Well, and it's funny. I think I like it because I love saying that. Chupacabra. Chupacabra. I don't know.
That's a good reason.
That sounds like something I order at Taco Bell.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me get the local Doritos and the Chupacabra.
But exactly. We did a show about the Chupacabra, and I realized that there was a lot of. I can say it. It's my show. I can see whatever I want. There's a lot of bullshit in that story, and I don't know that I necessarily believe in it, but it's interesting.
If I ever see one, I just wonder if it'll let me like run up and give it a big ass hug. Oh, I wonder if he'd hug. We'll think.
Well, they're after the goats because they are actually the goat sucker.
Yeah, that's what Chupacabra means.
Chupacabra, goat sucker.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Ugh. I don't know why I say I want to hug it. No, I would. I would hug Bigfoot though.
Yeah, what's your favorite cryptid?
I don't think I have any.
You don't have any?
Mm-mm.
I would be willing to bet that she can't name 3 cryptids. And we've talked about 2 of them.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'll punch in your face.
Actually, we've mentioned 3 of them. But.
I mean, we don't have an upstairs anymore.
Wait a minute. Did we mention 3?
Yeah.
No,
because
y'all
I told you about
2.
2 of the people that we talked to, and it was 2 different.
Oh, that's right.
But,
yeah. I don't know. I don't really think about them too much.
Yeah. See, I'm more into the haunting stuff. That's
what I like the most.
Yeah, I have been on a big alien kick here lately. Because, I've always been fascinated with space and what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to talk about aliens a lot, and I don't know. I hope they come down and shoot out my tire with their ray gun or whatever.
Oh yeah,
That would be
right.
fun.
Do what?
We got to
I said that
experience
would
it
be
at
fun.
least one time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you hear the episode we did on Granger Taylor about a month or so ago?
I don't think so.
Are you familiar with who Granger Taylor is?
I don't think so. No.
He was the guy. He was back in the early '80s, and he was fascinated with aliens too. This guy was like a savant when it came to being a mechanic. He actually, when he was like 12 years old, he found a one-cylinder car. This is up in Canada. He found a one-cylinder car, and he totally rebuilt it without ever being shown how to do it. Then he found a train out in the woods, and he cleared out a bunch of room and built a track and got this locomotive actually running. It was an old steam locomotive, and it's like at a museum up there now. But this was the kind of stuff that he would do. And he was just an old farm boy.
What?
And
That's fascinating.
he ended up having this dream. He said that the aliens wanted to come and give him a trip, I think it was a 42-month trip around the solar system. And he was excited about it. Everybody thought he was everybody thought he was full of crap. But in the end, he kind of disappeared the night that he said, like, in 2 weeks they're coming. I had another dream. In 2 weeks they're coming. And it's going to be during a major storm. There was no storms up where they were at. It was just like, this was an area where they just don't get any big storms. Well, sure enough, 2 weeks on the day he said they were coming, there was major storm of the century type stuff.
Holy cow.
And he disappeared. He left that night and said he was going, and he disappeared, and nobody ever heard from him again. They did find a truck that supposedly was blown up, and he had all kinds of dynamite and stuff that he had access to, but they said this was enough to do basically 6 football fields of crater on the top of this mountain. So and they said his truck was blue, which he had painted it Pepto-Bismol pink, and so that didn't match up. There was a couple little body parts, as far as like a hip bone, and then I think part of a femur was found. But the Royal Mounted Canadian Police lost all of this evidence, so they couldn't even do DNA testing on it. So to this day, nobody really knows if it was him or not.
Yeah,
it was very very Illuminati type stuff going on with the Royal Police up there.
Wow. Dude, I might have to check this guy out.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. Fascinating story.
Yeah, I love stories like that. I try and find, all that weird stuff, like, for me, I try and explain to people, because there's a lot of people out there, and I don't know your guys' thoughts on it or whatever, but I'm going to tell you mine. When it comes to aliens, I tell people this all the time. We as a species would have to be extremely arrogant to think that we're the only intelligent life in the universe.
Exactly.
So there was a story that it was an interview I watched. They were interviewing a lady, and now I don't remember her name, but she worked for SETI, which is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And they were talking to her, and they said, what do you say to people whenever they tell you that, have you found any aliens or anything? How much of the sky are you actually looking at? And she said, we're only looking at a minuscule section of the sky. She said, the best way that I can explain it to them is look at the ocean. And you look at the ocean and you know that there are fish in there. You know they're in there. But the amount of sky that we're looking at, if you compared it to the ocean, it would be like if you took a 12-ounce glass and dunked it in the ocean and pulled out a glass of water. Are there fish in that water? No. But they're in the ocean. Just because there's not fish in this water doesn't mean that there's not life out there somewhere.
Yeah. Good way to look at it.
Yep, I agree 100%.
You know, I've seen some UFOs, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that an unidentified flying object absolutely means an alien. I don't know if it does or not. You know, all I know is it's unidentified. I couldn't tell you what I saw. You know, and there's a lot of people out there that like to jump on the bandwagon of, oh, it's a UFO, it's aliens. Well, that's not necessarily the case, you know, or at least I don't think it is, you know. Who knows? Maybe it is.
I have to excuse myself here.
You never know. It could be Starlink.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. It's funny. I do remember when I saw that go over my house, I stood in the yard thinking, what the hell is that?
Yeah, there was a lot of people who were posting on it, but it's pretty obvious because there's so much video out there of it now.
Right.
But if you don't know, if you've never seen the video, then
it
you would think, what the hell's this?
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
My earbud fell out, and Lily went and picked it up and brought it to me. I'm like, she's so funny.
That's funny. I'm sitting here talking to you guys about aliens, and Jerry's wearing an alien shirt.
Yeah.
I just realized that.
And the funny thing is aliens isn't my thing. Aliens and Bigfoot, I believe they both exist, and I'm just not that excited about it. It takes a really special alien story for me to really get into.
Right.
Now, I can listen to them, but for me to want to cover it and put the time into researching and all that stuff, it really takes a great story. Like Rendlesham Forest. I think that's a fantastic story.
Right.
The Aztec UFO episode we did, the one with all the school kids in Australia, where they all saw it, went back and drew and stuff. Those are the stories. Or the Stanford UFO case, and that actually happened, 30 minutes from where we used to live in Kentucky.
Wow.
It's a lot of people list that as the most evidence ever in a UFO case. So it's, a pretty cool story.
That's cool. And that was pretty close to where you guys lived, huh?
Yeah, Stanford, Kentucky is, a half hour, 45 minutes from Lexington.
Wow.
So
Yeah, the one with the school, we just talked about that not too long ago. That was an interesting case. There's a lot of good video out there of that. But yeah, I mean, we don't cover aliens a lot. We do, when a weird story pops up, we'll talk about it here and there, but most of what we do here is, we're either telling ghost stories or we're talking about horror movies. We talk a lot about horror movies. Both of us are just horror freaks, talk a lot about music and stuff. So
well, that's awesome. It's good to have some different things to talk about. And
yeah.
I think it's funny just to kind of sit back and shoot the shit.
Well, but like Jerry said earlier, it's like it ends up being like two guys sitting at a bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except neither one of us drink, so we're
right.
We're just two sober guys talking at a bar.
Oh,
and
there you go. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
That just doesn't even sound right. But yeah. So why don't you guys tell our people how they can find you, like they wouldn't know how to find you guys.
Well, drive to Smyrna Beach, take a left, and drive about 30 minutes.
Awesome. I'll be over tomorrow morning.
Well, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, Hillbilly Horror Stories. We have a website, hillbillyhorrorstories.com, where you can buy tickets for live events if you want to go on the cruise, or at least check out the information. That's the best place to do it. And, of course, we have a Patreon that we don't really advertise too much, but there if you want extra content. But everything all is on that webpage, and including some news interviews and stuff we've done with some local outlets and back in Lexington and Louisville and, a few other places that we've done. But that's pretty much it. I do have another podcast that I'll throw in here at the end that I do with a young lady up in Massachusetts by the name of Amanda. It's a completely different vibe than what we do on Hillbilly Horror Stories because it can be anything. It could be a time slip story. It could be a haunting. It could be a true crime story. And much the same way, she doesn't know the story that I'm going to present her with, but it's a little more adult than what Hillbilly Horror Stories is. And it's just a fun 20, 30-minute episode, no interviews, nothing like that. But that's called Wickedly Weird with Jerry and Amanda. And I think if you check out both of the shows, you'll like both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I loved the show that you did with Amanda before, the Warning You Will Be Offended. That show was so fun.
Yeah, a lot of people like that one, and that was way more adult than what the new one is. We reinvented it and tried to become a little more, not so much family friendly, but PG friendly.
Right, a little PG-13 kind of.
Yep.
Yeah, because the other one was a little R-rated, which was fine with me. I like that. So, are you still doing the Macabre Misfortunes?
Yep, that's what we do. That's our Saturday episodes, which those are always like unique deaths or tragedies. It's always got some kind of death. I think we did a Christmas episode one time that it didn't have death involved. It was about a guy that basically went out of town. He hit his head, lost his memory, and was living an alternate life for years. And then his memory came back, and he showed up on his wife's doorstep at Christmas. Once he remembered, it's like 5 or 6 years later, and she had never given up hope, never remarried, nothing like that. So that's the only story we've done that doesn't have some kind of tragic death involved. We cover some musicians and stuff like that on there. Musicians have passed away and things like that.
That's cool. And then you had a YouTube channel going that you. Can you tell us about that? I'm glad
you brought that up. Yeah. There's two YouTube channels. One of them is Hillbilly Dead Time Stories. That's more of a, it's almost like a lore type situation, 10-minute episodes. Mm-hmm. We actually did one of the episodes on the Stanford UFO abduction on there, but we have full videos for those that we actually took a lot of time. It take about 8 hours to do a 8 or 9 minute video on there. So that's Hillbilly Dead Time Stories. But I've moved a lot of those over to our regular page, Hillbilly Horror Stories. And we're really trying to focus on that one. So go to Hillbilly Horror Stories on YouTube. We've been putting up 2 or 3 videos a week. So we got rid of everything that was on there and started fresh. So there's still a bunch of content on there right now, but there's more and more every single week. But go check it out, subscribe, and we would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to monetize it, and we haven't gotten there yet. You got to get 4,000 hours of watched video in a year to be able to monetize, and we're falling a little bit short. So if you guys can go watch some videos, we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it's tough. Now, are you guys doing video on your podcast yet?
We're not. We are talking about doing some shorter, like 5-minute clips. Mm-hmm. That are not really part of the episode, but like a whole new little 5-minute short story and filming that and using that for TikTok and YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah.
We've been doing long form video on YouTube for a long time, and I don't know, it's okay, but it's just not getting us where we want to be. We've actually been talking about kind of dissecting our episodes and doing like a little 5-minute here, or maybe a 10-minute, shorten them up a little bit, because I know myself, I've got to be really interested in a story to sit there for an hour and watch it, Mm-hmm. But if it's 8 or 10 minutes, oh yeah, I'll watch that. I got time for that. But yeah,
I think comedians showed that doing little 2 and 3 minute clips is where it's at. You can watch it. It's funny. You'll watch more if you want to.
Yeah.
But I think they're the ones who have really started all this 2-3 minute clip thing.
Yeah. Well, and TikTok has just gotten huge, and there's a lot of people doing little short, 30-second videos and stuff. But for me, I don't really get into those that much, because you just can't learn that much in 30 seconds. Yeah,
and I can only do the hottest dance trend.
Right. people get tired of seeing me dance. And, it's got to be a full moon, and I'm out in the woods naked, and,
All right.
you know how it is. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's awesome, guys. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on and telling some stories and putting up with me and my buddy Ryan over here.
Nice.
He was awful quiet tonight.
Yeah, he needs to eat too, by the way.
Yeah, get that guy a sandwich.
Feed that guy a sandwich. But yeah, absolutely love the show. Love everything you do. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
You're
awesome too.
Keep up the good work. Keep us entertained.
Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate it, JT.
I'm going to close this out, but if you hold on just a minute, I'll be back to you. All right?
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. So that was Jerry and Tracy Paulley from Hillbilly Horror Stories. You guys should know them. They've been around for a long time. They're putting out some fantastic content. If you haven't heard of them, go over, check them out. Believe me, you will not be disappointed. They are phenomenal. But I'm going to get out of here and go hang out with my wife. So until next time, keep it creepy.